Okay, I'll just say, like to invite all the audience to take a seat at this time. Great. Just give a few more seconds for. Okay, I think we can start now. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Again, it's wonderful to see you again. And of course, many of you had a long journey, I think yesterday. So hopefully you had some chance to recover, rejuvenate, and start fresh today. So it's a pleasure for me to host this session. I think this is going to be, one of the most practical and relevant session of this forum. So again, thank you for your interest and participation. Just to give a general context about this session, just make a few remarks. As you know, roads are the backbone of connectivity across our region. They link farmers to markets, students to schools, and communities to hospitals. But they're also among our most vulnerable assets. Across the Asia Pacific, we are witnessing with increasing frequency of devastating consequences of climate-induced disasters. Landslides that sever highland communities for weeks, flash floods that wash away decades of infrastructure investments, and extreme weather events that are no longer once in a generation occurrences, but near annual realities. In Papua New Guinea, for example, the road connectivity is not a convenience. It is a lifeline. And as I have witnessed for myself, the steep terrain, heavy rainfall, and seismic risk place extraordinary demands on road infrastructure. In Pakistan, the Himalayan and Karakoram corridors face acute seismic risks, landslides, and flash flooding. And here in the Philippines, for those who live here, as you are familiar, the Laguna Lakeshore Road Network demonstrates forward-looking urban climate adaptation through elevated viaducts and enhanced drainage, designed explicitly for future climate conditions. Beyond engineering, digital technologies, including remote sensing, AI-supported analysis, and real-time monitoring are changing how we detect risk, prioritize maintenance, and respond to hazards. At the same time, results-based lending and climate-linked financing are reshaping incentives to reward resilient outcomes, and not just infrastructure delivery. So the question before us today is not whether our roads face these pressures. They do. But how we respond. I look forward to a rich and candid exchanges with our panel this morning, and let us begin. So I'd like to, at this stage, invite our keynote speakers and panelists. So please take a seat. Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to just, before we go to move on to presentation, just a short introduction of the speakers and panelists here. So from here, we have Mr. Gibson Horma, Executive Director, Deputy Secretary for the Department of Works and Highways, Papua New Guinea. Sorry?
It's okay.
Oh, Secretary. Secretary. And then we have Ms. Zenadida Mauhai, also known as our PM Zeni, Project Manager, Laguna Lakeshore Road Network Project, Department of Public Works and Highways in the Philippines. Of course, we have then ADB staff as 3 panelists, starting with Charlene Shem, Principal Transport Specialist, then Byungjo Gong, a Digital Technology Specialist, finally Wilson Park Sang Liu, Transport Specialist. Once again, thank you very much. So now let us start with the presentation of the first speaker, Secretary Gibson, who will show us ADB projects and share experiences from the field. Please.
Thank you, our moderator, Mr. Lee, for warmly welcoming us to the stage. Good morning, colleagues, the heads of agencies across the Asia and the Pacific, the resident mission officials, our researchers, our academics, and the consultants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to break the ice for this session. And I welcome you all to the experience of Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea's geography presents some of the most complex infrastructure challenges in the Pacific. This presentation that we will cover in the next 10 minutes highlights how innovation, resilience, and the strategic partnership with the Asian Development Bank are transforming our road sector in the country. The focus areas are the disaster risk management, the climate resilience, the digital transformation, and also the institutional reforms that the bank is supporting us. Our vision is to build infrastructure that not only connects our people today, but protects the future generations. And that is what we intend to do. And our government has developed a program called Connect PNG, Economic Road Infrastructure Development Program. And Papua New Guinea has a population of approximately 10 million or 11 million people. And over 80% of our population lives in our rural districts and provinces. We have almost 22 provinces across Papua New Guinea with 5 regions, including our special region of Bougainville. The road network in PNG is almost around 35,000 kilometers plus. That's a total road network in the country, including almost 2,000 meters of bridges and cross-drainage structures. Our national road network in the country is almost 13,750 kilometers of the last gazettal last year. And of that network, the 16,500 kilometers is covered under the national government's flagship program called Connect PNG program. The map you see in front, that basically represents the island of New Guinea. The half on the western side is us. On the eastern side is the Indonesian border. And so the Connect PNG program looks at covering the entire island of New Guinea on the western side, where our country is. Our geography is very mountainous, with floodplains and swamps along the coastlines. Over 800 islands that we also need to connect, 600 islands that we need to connect across our region. We also have almost 800 different ethnic groups and languages as a challenge of how we can able to work with the communities across the country. And since then, ADB has been a partner since 1972, before our independence in 1975, on a first loan project starting off. And since Then Asian Development Bank has been a good partner. And just recently, our Prime Minister announced in one of our official gatherings that he really likes ADB for supporting them in our aspirations of countries' development. The strategic importance of resilient roads are essential for economic growth and national integration. And Connect PNG is based on our multi-sectoral and multimodal economic growth corridor development concept, where each sectors across country, including transport sector, which we are part of, they connect agriculture, mining, tourism, and energy sectors to domestic and export markets. Roads improve accessibility to healthcare, education, law and order, and government services, as we all know. Is under the flagship Connect PNG program, the resilient infrastructure is central to nation building and inclusive development. Just as we speak this week, we had a successful connection between our capital city of Port Moresby into the second largest city of Leh, connecting our transport link between the transnational economic corridor, which is the corridor number 1 of our road economic program. A single road closure in PNG can isolate the entire provinces and disrupt the national economy. And that is why building a network redundancy, that is the focus of the Connect PNG program, creating alternative routes so that accessibility to our ports and our access to services is maintained. In the ADB partnership program so far, since 1972, we've run almost 292 projects. Out of that, 88 of them are under transport sector. We in the Pacific receive almost 80% of the ADB's portfolio in the Pacific region. That's Papua New Guinea alone. And under the transport sector, we are running actually at this moment almost 2.6 billion US under the Asian Development Bank funding. The ADB support has evolved from road financing to long-term institutional and technical partnerships. And we would like to see this being enhanced through supporting our institutional capacities at Department of Works and Transport, even Road Traffic Authority and PNG Road Fund, so that we can able to sustain our road network in terms of road maintenance and keeping the road network sustainable and open for any time, at any day. Programs such as the SHIP program has improved both infrastructure and governance systems. The partnership has accelerated innovation, resilience, planning, and digital engineering practices. Just recently, we just completed a draft of the road maintenance and road design manuals to climate resilience standards. This collaboration demonstrates how development partnerships can deliver lasting national impact. On disaster risk landscape, we have frequent landslides, we have flash floods, the slips, the seismic activity. We are one of those islands that are really hit hard by volcanoes and heavy tectonic activities. We have rising sea levels that's washing away our roads. And so looking at that, and the bank has really supported us in looking at how we can provide resilience in the road network. And PNG is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the Pacific. Roads are constantly exposed to landslides and floods, earthquakes, coastal erosion, and extreme weather patterns. Climate change is increasing, and intensity or frequency of these events is increasing. And we would like to work with the bank to see how we can access climate finance for road maintenance practices at the incremental cost. We need to measure that particular incremental cost and how do we have access to that funding to sustain the road network. Not just build it, but have to maintain it. And that is the key concern we have. Infrastructure failures directly impact communities, supply chains, and economic productivity. And so resilience can no longer be optional. It must be embedded in every single stage of infrastructure delivery. The climate resilient initiatives that we have taken so far, PNG is mainstreaming climate resilience into policy, design, and construction and maintenance practices. The vulnerability assessments and seismic studies now guide engineering decisions. Raised pavements of pavement recycling and stabilization is one of those initiatives that we are taking on board. Improved drainage systems from a 600 millimeter diameter pipe to almost 1.2 meter pipe from the drainage system, increasing the size because of the amount of rainfall we are experiencing on the island. Developing flood-resistant bridges and drainage structures is something that we are investing at the moment. The construction of PNG's first ever steel arch bridge, showing that we are now going into looking at climate resilient structures, bringing in new technologies into the Pacific. On digital road asset management system, we are shaping how PNG should manage our transport network in terms of improving our road asset management system and upgrading our road asset management system using technologies such as LiDAR, GIS, and AI, improving our accuracy and decision-making processes. Our systems allow faster decision assessments and more efficient maintenance planning. On institutional reforms, we're focusing on developing our institutional capacity in resilience requiring strong institutional support. The PNG is prioritizing maintenance, and that is why we've created a maintenance division and establishing the PNG Road Fund, looking at strengthening the role of RTA to regulate the traffic and collecting road levies, related charges on road user charges, and make sure that we sustain our road network. And that is what we are doing at the moment. And procurement reforms, looking at how we can efficiently deliver big long-term projects that supports our communities. And so, since the partnership with ADB, we are looking at supporting our community resilience. Infrastructure development must directly improve community livelihoods. And you can see from this picture, from the ADBC program, we've developed almost 40 bus stops and markets along the road corridor from the main port all the way up the highlands of the Papua New Guinea, and also installing wash facilities for our mothers and girls to access basic services. So road safety and gender inclusion programs are also embedded in our program. And looking at the case study of the ADB program, we've built almost 430 kilometers of our national road network under Tranche 1 of this program. Tranche 2 is completing this year. We are building almost 71 bridges under the contract, and we did a contract savings of almost 200 million. And now we are building additional 5 bridges out of those contract savings. So I would like to thank our team for working very hard to look at how we can improve road network in the country, looking at climate resilient structures. All those bridges are being designed for climate resilient standards. And so I would like to highlight the lessons learned from our practice and our experience. Climate resilience must begin at the planning and design stage, not after construction. It must also continue into maintenance programs. Digital technologies significantly improve monitoring, maintenance, and accountability. Our strong partnership accelerates innovation and strengthens institutional capacity. Sustainable funding mechanisms are critical to preserving infrastructure investment, and I would like to ask ADB to support sustainable financing systems. And to conclude, our vision on road network, the PNG's future infrastructure vision, is the climate smart, digital enabled, and economically transformative. Connect PNG will continue to expand resilient transport corridors across the country for the next 15 years on our program, our 20-year program. Our smart technologies like AI support systems will increase guide asset management decisions. Regional and international cooperation with ADB and other Pacific Island countries across Asia is very key, and we would like to welcome partnership and exchange of ideas so that we can support our development aspirations. The mission is clear. We want to build a connected, resilient, and prosperous Papua New Guinea in the next 50 years. Thank you very much for listening.
Secretary Gibson, thank you very much for that presentation. Yeah. So let's then move on to the second presentation by PM Zeni, and she will showcase the achievements of the Laguna Lakeshore Road Network project, which just started.
Thank you. Thank you, DK. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Public Works and Highways of the Philippines, I'm honored to present our project, the Laguna Lakeshore Road Network, or Laguna LLRN project. To begin with, let us watch this short video that presents the vision and scale of the LLRN project.
38 million people live in the shadow of this lake, but for 3.47 million of them, the water is a daily gamble. Fisherfolk battle shifting tides, while commuters lose hours to gridlocked southern corridors. Climate change and congestion. That's all it takes to delay and sever access to schools, markets, and emergency services. 220 kilometers of vulnerable shoreline. 0.3 meters, higher water levels. For decades, Laguna de Bay has dictated how we live, how we move, and what we lose to extreme weather. The climate isn't changing. It has already changed. The cost of doing nothing isn't just traffic. It's paralyzed economic potential. The infrastructure of today cannot just survive the present. It must defy the storms of tomorrow. The Laguna Lakeshore Road Network is not just an expressway. It is a 49.1 kilometer lifeline with a 37.5 kilometer mainline length. Spanning from Lower Bihkutan to Calamba, it integrates 12 kilometers of offshore viaducts with 25.5 kilometers of robust onshore hybrid viaduct embankment design scheme. Connecting communities through 7 major interchanges, it is built to rise above the highest waters. Driven by advanced hydrodynamic modeling, it allows for natural lake water flow, ready for future sea and lake level rise. When disasters strike, it becomes an unflooded artery for emergency relief. We aren't fighting the lake. We are engineering with it. Slashing peak hour travel time by 25%, we are bridging the greater capital region directly to the economic engine of Calabarzon and as a backbone of the broader Luzon economic corridor. Uninterrupted and inclusive access for trade. We are securing a faster, fearless, and empowered shared economic prosperity for 3.47 million lives. We no longer just live in the shadow of the lake. We rise above it. This is what climate-resilient infrastructure looks like. This is the new Philippines. A nation building for the next generation.
Let us now continue what the LLRN project is. The LLR project is a climate-resilient infrastructure and a high-standard highway that will bring the communities and markets within the reach. It is composed of 2 phases. Phase 1 runs along the western side in red line, while Phase 2 traverses in eastern side in blue line. By the way, Phase 2 is under project preparation and subsequently, it's DED procurement. But for now, we will focus on Phase 1. Beyond its physical scope, the LLRN project is deeply anchored and synchronized with various master plans from ADB to JICA to support the basis of the project. In terms of policy framework, it has been recognized and a strategic component of the Luzon Economic Corridor, aligned with the Philippine Development Plan and consistent with the ADB country partnership strategy. So now, let us discuss the key climate, disaster risk, and safeguard considered for the project. First, we applied a 10% increase in rainfall intensity using the 25 and 100-year return periods based on the latest Philippine DOST Pag-asa rainfall data. Second, we considered 0.3 meters due to projected lake level rise to the Laguna Lake due to climate change. Third, Located just 1 kilometer from the west fault line, at its nearest point in Taguig and Muntinlupa, the project will build in bridges and viaducts supported by board piles up to 60-meter deep with pile caps to withstand major earthquake, soft soil, and liquefactions. The project embeds environmental stewardship across planning, design, construction, and operation to deliver a safe, sustainable, and climate-resilient road network around Laguna Lake, with its EIA publicly disclosed in the ADB and DPWH websites. Lastly, on the social side, the project involves the acquisition affecting over 1,000 families with a comprehensive resettlement and livelihood restoration plans disclosed also at the DPWH and ADB websites. Knowing the risk and complexities of the projects has to overcome, what are the key innovations that we have done for the project? To demonstrate the evidence-based decision-making, the project utilized IFSAR and LiDAR along with the rainfall data to produce two-dimensional flood simulation to determine effectivity of drainage system. In addition, the third-party validation was conducted as part of the due diligence commissioned by ADB. The viaduct portion of the project are designed to provide sufficient vertical clearance over the lake and waterways, considering the 100-year lake level of 3.8 above mean sea level, vessel heights, 0.3 meter due to climate change, and freeboard. This is to provide serviceability of the project roadway and a year-round access for fisher folks to the lake, even in the event of extreme flooding. The embankment sections of the project consider the water level as well as the wave runoff from the lake. To mitigate this, the embankment was set at an elevation of 6 meters above mean sea level, with equalizing box culvert placed at the average of 150 meters apart to allow the continuous drainage of upstream catchment into the lake. Equalizing box culvert were increased from 2.5 by 1.5 to 3 by 3 meter, and for waterways, they were upgraded to facilitate the 10% increase in rainfall due to climate change. In summary, the LLRN constitutes 22 kilometers of bridges and viaduct, and a total of 100 box culverts were provided. The project is one of the country's pioneering ODA projects to adopt the merit point criteria, evaluating both technical and financial bids to ensure a transparent, balanced, and value money procurement process for the Philippine government. The PWH judiciously applied the merit point criteria to all three contract packages ranging from $400 to $700 million each, setting a benchmark and a best practice for procuring complex, high-value contracts that balance quality and cost. LLRN Phase 1 in the amount of $3.2 billion is among the first DPWH flagship project to use the ADB's multi-trans financing facility, enabling phased financing for continuous implementations and fiscal flexibility. Project management innovations include streamlining, hiring competent consultants and monitoring agents, and complementarity of international with local standards. ADB and DPWH conducted a 3-day grievance redress mechanism workshop attended by the representatives from the local government units, different national government agencies, consultant contractors, and other stakeholders. To date, that DPWH establish a 3-level GRM local help desk with the barangay to receive, evaluate, and facilitate the resolution of affected persons' grievances about the project. And lastly, the DPWH LLRN team conducted numerous stakeholder engagement, information dissemination, and close coordination with affected persons, stakeholders, and national government agency, particularly the Laguna Lake Development Authority as our coordinating agency. We took into our heart of making sure that the project underwent a whole of society approach to project development and implementation. This is a project of the people, and they should be part of the process. That ends my presentation, but before I end, I would like to express deeply my appreciation to DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon, Senior Undersecretary Emil Quesadain, the DPWH LLRN team, CTI, and most especially my colleagues in the ADB, the ADB Transport Group headed by DK Lee, as well as Ms. Chaurin. He is my co-team leader during the preparation, during the project preparation, and also to Bing Rufo and Chander from Safeguard, as well as Sinai and Myra from the procurement and financial management, respectively. You know, with Ms. Chaurin, we had lots of discussion and arguments about this project, but at the end of the day, we are proud to share that the project is now ongoing in its civil works implementation, and we are presenting it to all of you in full compliance with our requirement, both from the government and ADB, particularly in climate change adaptation. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me? I think hopefully it's working. Okay, very interesting presentations. First, from the Secretary Gibson, I can certainly relate to your presentation because I've been to Papua New Guinea many times. Though my last trip I think was before the pandemic, but I used to fly to Port Moresby quite often from here in Manila, and then driven a few times through the highlands area. So I can certainly relate to the enormous challenges and the difficulties that you face on a daily basis. So it was really heartwarming to hear your presentation. Now, of course, and then PM Zenny. So it's of course we walked the shores of Laguna Lake Shore during the preparation stages with all the consultants and safeguard specialists also. So it's really we used to actually talk about this project as a kind of model project for DPWH here because it was prepared with diligently, and of course the readiness in terms of implementation. So it was really considered model projects. I mean, all of the contracts now awarded as of I think late last year, and if somebody had told me that earlier last year, I would not have believed it. But you made us believe. Okay, thank you again. So at this stage, I think I'd like to move on to some of the questions for our presenters and panelists. So the first round of question here goes to, of course, Secretary Gibson and PM Zenny. And the question is, from your project experience, what was the single most critical design decision that most improved the resilience against climate and disaster risks?
Thank you, DK, for giving that opening question. In terms of climate resilience in PNG, we have multiple issues, but basically on experience on the ADB finance program, on the Highlands ship program, the most important decisions that we have to make in terms of climate resilience was looking at the bridge designs and the slips, land slips along the most important road of our road network, which is the Highlands Highway. Covers almost 21 critical sections on that highway that's always affected anytime when there is a big storm event or in any time when there is a big rainfall. And so to make a very important decision was to ensure that we apply appropriate technology to reinforce and strengthen the pavement, including the mountain and slopes. And now with the bridges, we've replaced most of the Bailey bridges, the temporary bridges, into a two-lane concrete bridge that is climate resilient. So that is one of those challenging decisions that we need to make in terms of climate resilient infrastructure program. And one of them also is to look at improving road safety with the accessibility of our mothers to have access to wash facilities.
Thank you, Secretary. Just, yeah, please, PM Jenny.
Hello. I think the project key resilience decision for the LLRN is the adoptions of the hybrid viaduct scheme with elevated clearance and enhanced equalizing box culvert, considering the project climate change projection while maintaining the project as financially viable and affordable.
Just an additional question for Secretary Gibson. Which resilience measures you think is proved most difficult to implement in Papua New Guinea terrain? I mean, when I visited there, for example, I think the bridge location was very difficult. I mean, I think during the preparation stage, I think there were consideration about locating the bridge, for example, up and changing the alignment, but that would have been also very extremely costly option. So, yeah, I mean, just wanted to take your thoughts. I mean, you know, what measures do you think was the kind of most difficult to tackle?
The most difficult thing, especially with PNG, is that the land is owned by the locals. It's a customary land, and having to, if we are doing a change on the alignment or the bridge location, we've got to make a lot of investment on safeguards, resettlement, and paying of improvements. It's the biggest challenge I've seen. And so that is one of those concerns that I want to bring it across to the bank to consider. Now that the policy has changed on bringing back the government to take on the responsibility of paying the crop improvements, that is will be becoming a big issue in terms of implementing the programs in the future. And one of those challenges we face is basically having to relocate our people there. And if it is financed by the government, it will be a challenge implementing the future programs. But nevertheless, on the other factor I see is having on access to also sustain or even access to the climate funding by our institution, on embedding it into our institutional system. That is the biggest, most challenge, because department has to be also have the capacity to monitor after the completion of those projects so that we can sustain the maintenance program. So one of those key, maybe we're looking at the strengthening of the institutional, of the institution capacity to also collect information and able to work with other stakeholders to support our initiatives and on the investment by the bank financing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Before moving on to other panelists, just one more question for PM Zeni. And this is about really institutional coordination. I recall, you know, it was really challenging for this project to coordinate you know, multi-agency involvement in the same project. I remember you had, you know, very, huge consultation, stakeholder consultation meetings with, many agencies involved. And this is a very complicated task. So just wanted to, if you can explain a little bit more, elaborate on, what were those challenges,
The project experienced numerous challenges, and I will summarize into three major themes. First, the regulatory requirements, clearances, pass-through fees, and local permitting for the local government units and concerned government agencies. Given the scale of the project, which traverses 7 cities and 32 barangays, securing this regulatory requirement is a great challenge for the team. For the team, we are practicing the carrot and stick strategy. I can say for the carrot, we have a numerous continuous dialogue with the people affected, with the agencies concerned, to understand what really is the project, the risk, the climate change adaptations, the affected persons. So for the stick, if we found out that an agency and or barangays and or the LGUs, we sent an official documentation. As a matter of fact, on the latest one, the DPW, through Secretary Beans, issued a directive per Executive Order number 59 from the President as our legal basis to streamline the processing of these permits, clearances, as well as the removal of the other requirements. The second is the establishing of the legal establishment and legal arrangement and instruments. The project needed the executions of the Memorandum of Agreements and Understanding to define the role and obligations of those agencies and LGUs. Actually, this LLRN project is a different nature compared to other projects. Why? Because the Laguna Lake is under jurisdiction by other agency, which is the Laguna Lake Development Authority, and it's their mandate as far as the lake. So what we did on that is that we execute the Memorandum of Agreement defining its roles and obligation. And I wish to believe that we are successful because we have a smooth, close coordination, clear definition, and executions in the implementations of the project. And the third, this is the last, the environmental and social safeguards requirement. We all know that this is a very tough on its compliance, especially the ADB requirements. We know everything. So, but it is important to note that it must not be at the detriment of the project momentum. The concerned agency, as well as the ADB, should act with agility and flexibility, because the implementing agency is capable to address and mitigate. And at the same time, for me, other aspect also of the review process should be possible to streamline. I think that's all our major challenges experienced on the execution of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, PM Jenny. So I think Yeah, from ADB point of view, I think these climate resilience and disaster risk really presents a difficult case for us as well, because it just makes project preparation much more complex. But it's also intellectually challenging, I think, because there are many factors to consider, and often they're competing and conflicting, and also this could also escalate the cost. So I thought just ask some of our panelists, our project officers from ADB who had direct experience in processing and conducting due diligence. So maybe Chaoling can share some experience from the Laguna Lakeshore Road Network processing.
Okay. Yeah, it's always difficult to balance this global agenda, but still ensuring the project feasibilities. And I remember we were having the similar set of discussions with the DPWH and also any other implementing agencies when we were preparing projects. In the policy of the government and everywhere, the awareness is there, and policies already reflect the climate change initiatives. But we always have to bear in mind that we are not really enforcing something which is beyond of feasibility or acceptability. And we're talking about economic benefit derived from the infrastructure investment. But if the associated cost is like enormous, then we're not entirely sure if that really also makes sense. So we focus on having the balance from that perspective when we were preparing Laguna Lakeshore road network project. But I think the spirit is applicable for other projects, and I believe other project officers are also following that principles.
So just follow up, I mean, so when you were first tasked to process this loan, ADB, and study interaction with DPWH, what was the first critical thing that you wanted to check or wanted to see for yourself regarding this climate change resilience aspect?
Yeah, most of the agencies already have climate adaptation measures in their engineering design principles. And because the project is located in the flood-prone area, not only to ensure that we are helping out the project area, but also the design should be contributing the overall system of the road network that the project is located and connected to. So we wanted to ensure that by having this project, of course, first and foremost, it should not create additional issues. That's the basic one. But eventually, they should be able to contribute for the entire road network and system that this project will be contributing to. So that's what we wanted to check first. Of course, there are other due diligence areas that the usual project also have to have, but this was the critical part that I factored in when I took over this project in the beginning, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing those insights. So at this stage, maybe we could move to another topic regarding digital tools. We have here as a panel, as I introduced earlier, Byung-jo, who is a digital technology specialist. Actually, it's the most recent sector department created in ADB. So we thought it would be interesting to hear from him. So Byung-jo, so our questions to you is, first question is, which digital tools do you think have delivered the real value on road projects? And how can they be institutionalized beyond just being a pilot case?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think when it comes to talking about impactful digital tools, I think there are a few technologies that stand out. I think the satellite interferometry or INSAR is, I think, one of the most impactful tool for monitoring road infrastructure and safety. So it uses the radar signals to compare images of a same location taken at different times. So it really helps you to conduct the precise surface monitoring by detecting even a very tiny changes or movements on the ground with centimeters or even the advanced ones in millimeter level precisions. So it is particularly useful because it allows you to monitor the large areas remotely, even the locations where it's very hard to or unsafe to travel to conduct the underground inspections, which is very important for many developing countries. And alongside that, the drone probably also provides one of the most accessible entry point. So drone-based monitoring assessment helps you to conduct mapping of road segments or conducting the visual condition assessment of the surface. And it's, the cost has significantly dropped, and also it's very widely available. And even the operating requirements and costs is very manageable in remote corridors. So I think that is also one of the very impactful digital tools out there. And I also have to mention about like conventional AI and machine learning techniques that we usually use to analyze the large data sets, which helps you to identify patterns so that you can identify the high risk road sections, and also you can use it for the predictive maintenance and so on. And for your second question about how to institutionalize these digital tools, I think there are three very critical components that you have to think about. I think first is that you have to make sure that these digital tools are integrated in the standard operating procedures, not like a standalone innovations that you just conduct as a siloed project. I think that's important. And also you have to make sure that there's enough of institutional capacity to operate it. So there gotta be a capacity building programs that has to be combined. And lastly, I think this is also one of the critical constraining factors is that there gotta be a budget allocation. Many times digital tools fail to sustain the operation because they don't have a sustainable financing to operate that. So I think, so overall, it is very important to have the view that these digital tools are part of your routine daily process rather than considering as a separate standalone innovation.
Okay. Well, actually, I also came across this topic on a personal level, actually, during the pandemic period. As you know, we actually could not visit project sites. I think at that time we had a large port project ongoing in the Tonga, and we need to kind of find out what is going on there. And then so I think we had found a way to install cameras at various points where you could have a real-time monitoring actually of the construction progress. And of course, and then on another occasion, I think we had to mobilize consultants to conduct surveys, and they actually deployed drones, I think with the LiDAR technology, I think, and which gave a very accurate map of the topographic map of the terrain in a very accurate way. So that was a kind of eye-opening for me. So just going back to Byung-jo again, which digital tools do you think, for example, remote sensing, AI monitoring, or which of those tools do you think are the most operationally mature today?
I think all of the technologies that we have mentioned is already operationally mature. The remote sensing, like the satellite interferometry, and also the drone imagery is already very well established when it comes to using for the project operations. And also the conventional machine learning techniques, as I mentioned, it's been there for a long time. You can use it for to analyze the sensor data from roads or bridges for the predictive maintenance. Just to prioritize where are the high-risk sections, and so that you can allocate the budget properly based on that analysis. That is already beyond the pilot stage, and it's also already very routine operational use techniques. Yeah.
Okay. And just finally, for information for our, executing agencies here, what are, in your view, what are minimum data skill or systems that are required for institutional uptake for this type of digital tools?
I think what is important, I don't think every agency has to have a very advanced AI capabilities to use these tools. I think most critical thing is that whether they have a proper digital foundations, whether they have a reliable data collection systems, and also whether they have a consistent asset inventories, I think those kind of things are very critical to begin with. And also staff capacity also is very important. The institution has to have a staff who can translate this digital information and insights into the decision-making process. So those level of staff capacity also is very essential. But I think lastly, which is also very important, is usually this is not a technical challenge to use digital tools. It's more of an institutional challenge. The institution should have this readiness to integrate these digital insights in their standard operating procedures. So I think those are some of the things that people has to have when considering trying to integrate these digital tools into their operating procedures. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Byung-jo. So with that, anything that can be added from two speakers, Secretary Gibson?
Thank you, sir. I would like to also reinforce that comment made by Mr. Kong in terms of institutional capacity building in the road technologies on AI and the technologies that are coming. That's very important. We would like to see that embedded in our institutional systems. After the loan program, the institution must have the capacity to sustain it. That's the key concern we are facing. We must have the ability to also measure and track and monitor in terms of road maintenance. There's a big challenge at this time in terms of us implementing or executing agencies. The consultants leave, and then we have a capacity gap where we need to now bring in resources to finance and strengthen it through budgetary systems. That's a challenge that we face every now and then. So with the new technologies that we've been developed through the programs, that needs to be embedded within, and consultants that are engaged to run this, specialists must be embedded within the department, not specifically out of a PIU or even a PMO office. That should be embedded within the department so they strengthen and train the institution so that they can sustain themselves. That is something that I would like to raise it to this panel to look at how we can embed it in the next few projects. Our specialist experts that goes into supporting us on these initiatives must be embedded within the system, not outside of the institutional systems. And at the same time, on the climate change financing on road maintenance, as I mentioned in my presentation, recording of those information using the AI technology, and that needs to be also strengthened through the institutional capacity program. Because after you leave, we need to monitor and measure what is the flood incremental change in those data that we need to also collect, monitor the pavement distress conditions, and so we can sustain the road maintenance in the future. So those technologies that will help us continue to sustain the network is very critical. At the same time, in terms of policy decision making, this information needs to be collected at the agency level so that we can bring it up to make sure that government is making decisions where the investment should go. So we should look at the higher level thinking as well in terms of how that digital technology provide support to government decision-making processes. Yeah.
Thank you, Secretary, for that interesting insights. PM Jenny, would you like to add anything from DPWH perspective?
Yes. Digital tools and AI are innovative and cutting edge, but the government needs to sustain capacity building and human capital development to institutionalize these tools beyond pilot projects. Without the knowledge, the understanding, and the right skills, these technologies, the output is limited. So hopefully the government and ADB prioritize the funding of this human resource development.
Thank you, PM Jenny. Just wanted to check if anything to add from our other panelists, Jordan or Wilson.
So thank you, TK. So I will share some experience from my project in Maharashtra, which I process in LBL. So in Maharashtra, India, we actually proposed to integrate climate risk and disaster hazard data into road asset management for the core network for the Public Works Department, and to also expand the current maintenance system for the Maharashtra Rural Development Association. So to also incorporate climate and disaster risk information. So what Joe described earlier, combining with AI, is exactly the analytical backbone that makes that possible, and also leveraging geospatial information systems, etc. So this is something that we also do in a project in India. So the other thing about how we can institutionalize it, which is obviously a challenge, and we feel that the most important thing at the end of the day is building the capacity of the agencies. So the tool obviously only adds values if the road agency can manage it and act on it. But in India, for example, the capacity building program of this RBL that we propose, we did have some trainings for at least 80 engineers for Public Works Department, 50 engineers also for the Rural Development Association, so which is obviously as important as the technology itself.
Thank you, Wilson. Anything else to add? Okay. Great. So this brings us to now our third and final topic. Actually, it's subdivided into two, but yeah, this is regarding results-based financing and climate change assessment. Now, the results-based lending modality was recently adopted for a large-scale rural road project in Maharashtra. And it's kind of different from our traditional modality where, the borrower is paid based on a outcome or outputs rather than inputs, such as paying contractors' invoice. So, and this really is an interesting system and also allows the use of country-based systems, especially procurement, right? Yeah. And of course, and then going back to again climate change assessment, how to incentivize this type of assessment and building resilience during the project preparation stage rather than thinking about it as a secondary aspect afterwards, right? So with that, maybe first ask Chaorin about the climate change assessment.
Yes, so I think all of the efforts that we are making by having this research-based lending and having rigorous climate assessment during the project preparation is all about incentives. So by doing that, I believe we are kind of trying to embed the DNA in the project, how all of the artificial effort that the humans making in the biosphere is really not resulting in any more adverse impact in the world. Just taking the example of Manila, of course, Manila is tropical weather and it's hot. But recently we were seeing it's like reaching 44, 45 at daytime temperature, which was not really the case when I first came in Manila. So as is already, the climate change has been already started, but all of the effort that we're trying to make is in our project preparation is basically not to worsen it, and in a way trying to set it off if any adverse impact has been already created. Yeah.
So for Chaoren, just additional question. So in your view, which climate or disaster risks, in your view, was most influential in shaping the project structuring or appraisal decision during the preparation?
For the Laguna Lakeshore Road Network, flooding issue and storm surge issue were the most critical things. Especially the project is located in a very unique situation where there is a lake and also there is a Manila Bay, and of course the water underneath is connected. So when we are talking about sea level rise, it required very rigorous analysis, detailed analysis, how this water would flow and how that will interact each other and have impact on the project asset itself and also for the project area. So that was the main, out of many climate and disaster risks, those two were the main concerns or issues that we tried to address by having detailed analysis that PM Jenny earlier presented. Yeah, and we believe we have successfully hedged the risk. We'll see.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, during board consideration stage for this project, I think one of the questions that were raised was, you know, how was this resilient features reflected in cost-benefit analysis or, you know, financing justification? Just wanted to ask if you can share the responses you made.
So, yeah, not necessarily wanting to go to the textbook analysis that everybody is already fully aware on the economic cost-benefit analysis. Obviously, the minor additional cost on the climate adaptation engineering solutions have been taken up. And at the same time, on the GHG emission reduction side, it's always considered as part of the economic benefit. Noting that road projects are not considered as something contributing to GHG emissions reduction by the initiative from IPCC, but it's a science. In the overall road network, this project or any other new road project in DMC countries mostly will result in GHG emissions reduction. That's science. But we're just trying to avoid acknowledging that fact just to kind of ensure shifting to other modalities rather than having more roads and having more vehicles. I think we have to be very careful about differentiating the context here, where in the DMCs we still have to have natural growth in road network, and vehicles are increasing anyway following the GDP increase. It's not necessarily because of that project you are having more vehicle, therefore you are having more GHG emissions.
Thank you, Sharon. So next question is for Wilson. Again, drawing on his experience with Maharashtra results-based lending modality, which is essentially disbursement based on outputs such as X kilometer of roads improved. But in this case, I think you had a climate resilience infused into that output. So it's not just X kilometer of roads, but you have to then qualify as X kilometer of roads with climate resilient features and so on and so on. So I thought, how is that now panning out? Do you think this is a, how's the executing agency reacting to this modality? What do they think about it? Do you think this could be incentivized if it's working well? Can it be, others would be willing to adopt more this kind of modality? Just wanted to take your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, TK. So I'll share a few things that I feel processing about this RBL. So this is the first time that we're doing RBL with this agency. Good thing is that in Maharashtra, Public Works Department and the Rural Development Association are very, very capable. So it's something that we found that it's really easy to work with them. So it's just something that we feel that will be important to start with them. There are a few things I also wanted to share in terms of how the behavior also changes when we do the RBL. So essentially how RBL changes behavior is because it changes the incentive structure. So under traditional investment lending, disbursement obviously follows expenditure. However, under an RBL, disbursement follows verified achievements or results. So this is a very fundamentally different relationship between the government and the financing structure. So the mechanism that makes RBL work is the DLIs, or the disbursement link indicators. So in general, a DLI is something that is very specific, measurable, that triggers the disbursements, which changes the incentive structure of a project. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what exactly are DLIs. And there are 4 things that generally we consider. So the first thing we have to think about is it needs to be tangible, something you can actually observe, not process aspiration. The other thing is it needs to be transparent, clearly defined so that there's no ambiguity about whether it can be achieved or not. The third is it should be under government control. The responsible agency must be able to deliver it. And the last but not least, it needs to be verifiable. It should be capable of independent confirmation. So with that, I will talk about also what are the behavioral changes we also see when we work with the 2 agencies. So the first thing is the planning horizon, the timeline. So obviously first, the procurement behavior changes. So the 2 government agency, Public Works Department and the Rural Development Association, so had to think about these green roads outcomes before the designs were even locked in. So in our project, in terms of green roads vision, action plan, all these climate change related issues are all embedded into the DLI. So it forced that planning to happen right at the beginning, but not at the end. So the second thing I wanted to share also is the engineering practice also changes. So because in our project, we have landscape and nature-based guidance, green roads, gas baseline assessment, biodiversity measures. These are all embedded in every single packages in the civil works contract. So in that sense, the field engineers on the ground would be accountable for them, because if they don't do that, you cannot get money. So essentially, if you have to do that, then they will get money based on achievement of the DLIs. The third thing is verification creates accountability. So in an RBL, we need to engage an independent verification agency, short for IVA. So they need to verify physical works, reports, training records, and safeguard compliance before all these loan disbursements can be triggered or meeting of the DLIs. So this is different. It disciplines the reporting system and the disbursement system simultaneously. So these are the behavioral change I want to share how RBL changes on the ground. And while the RBL is still on the early stage, and we just received the first submission of DLIs, so let's see how it goes. But we do feel very confident because the agencies are very, very capable.
Thank you, Wilson, for sharing that valuable experience. So at this stage, I'd like to open up to audience for any questions that you may have. You have been thinking in your minds as you have heard these comments and presentations. So no questions are considered strange or off track, please. Or you just wanted to share your thoughts on this topic, please. Yeah. Do we have microphones?
Good morning. For Ma'am sa DPWH po. We know that the Philippine Green Building Code was already done during the time of late President Benigno Aquino. So my question is it part of the requirements that being complied? Because, for example, we will be going to apply for a permit. Is it part of the checklist for the specific LGU? Because, well, as far as I'm concerned, I cannot find any website that says that 40 or 30% developers, construction companies is already complying with the Philippine Green Building Code of 2016 under Secretary Singson, I think. Thank you.
Actually, there are lots of regulatory requirements under the local government code. But we stick on the latest executive order number 59 from the president to streamline the local unnecessary requirements. So we stick on that regulatory executive number streamlining as far as the implementations of a flagship project. There are so many requirements from the local government units, and as we know, the environmental and social safeguards of the ADB as well as the government, the ENR, is too tough on its compliance. So we cannot move on its implementations, civil works implementation, unless we comply to those requirements.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Cost with the Advanced Urban Mobility Initiative. Thanks to all the speakers for the informative presentations. So I also have a question about the Laguna de Bay project. And as we've been moving around Manila this week, we've seen the very severe traffic congestion. And the fact that a lot of the wide roads in the city have quickly filled up with more traffic. And so you end up back at the same level of congestion with more polluting vehicles stuck in the jam. So for this upcoming road investment, are there any plans to create dedicated space for public transport to keep the buses moving so that buses aren't stuck in traffic congestion? Because today, that's driving a lot of people to shift to private vehicles as soon as they have the money to do so. And then also, would there be any dedicated space for pedestrians and cyclists? Because we've seen the growing cycling culture in Manila, and a lot of people are trying to ride to work, even in the present conditions. And perhaps with better cycle facilities, more people would ride. So just curious to hear about the plans for supporting low carbon modes. Thanks.
With regards to the provisions of the bike lanes, we did not include it in the LLRN because it was considered as an expressway. There is a provisions of limiting, I think, on the capacity of the motor to run in the LLR projects. On the traffic demand forecast, with the LLR project, as we know, SLEX is the only road as of now. As a matter of fact, during our request for the endorsement in the Regional Development Council, and at that time, there is the Taal volcano erupts, and all the vehicles went to the SLEX. So the directions for the LLRN, it will become an alternate road in case of disaster, and at the same time to address the congestion in the area.
Maybe if I
Yeah, please.
add, Laguna Lakeshore is one of the key flagship projects that ADB is working with the Philippine governments here. So we don't see a single project as in a fragmented way. It will support, of course, SLEX, but it also interact with the ongoing project, North-South commuter railways. So there will be various modes of subsectors in transport support, and all of these are inevitably all connected and interact with each other. So we see it from more on overall network support rather than a single investment project.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Chaudhry. Now, actually, there was one more question. Actually, there was also, I think, kind of similar question. You know, if there were active transport considerations during the preparation, how about the public transport for the Laguna Lake? So again, I think similar to what Chaudhry was explaining, we do have actually a parallel project that's ongoing to build the commuter rail. South Commuter Rail combined with North Commuter Rail. I think that goes all the way to Calamba, if I'm not mistaken. And that would be 100% public transport, commuter railways, and I think the alignments are kind of parallel, and there'll be also, I think, some design considerations to make it multimodal aspects also to be improved. So yeah, those are some of the any other questions from the audience?
Yes,
Yes,
good
please.
morning.
Yeah.
Also for the Laguna de Bay project, I don't know if there was a research done that this Laguna de Bay used to be a caldera, volcano, now dormant, but before it used to be active, and if this is worth and significant to your project now, thank you also for mentioning Taal volcano, because a projection was stated that it could also suck the magma from Taal and make this in the future, but we hope not, active once again. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, we did the coordination with government agencies as far as the seismic hazard. As a matter of fact, the LLR project is located within 1 kilometer away from its nearest point, and the project was designed into elevated hybrid viaduct and enhanced equalizing box culvert. And it was considered during the design that what you are talking about, caldera. The agency responded to us that it is a dormant, and we considered that on its design.
Thank you very much for insightful presentation. I'd like just to ask one question regarding the climate change procedures in project financing. Usually the projects during the preparation phase, they might include certain requirements for acquisition of certain certificates like LEED, BREEAM, or Envision certificates in order to align with certain climate change and disaster risk requirements. And usually these certifications, they require acquisition of certain goods from certain countries. In case, I mean, from the procurement side, there are some eligibility restrictions because according to ADB guidelines, the goods have to be procured from the DMC member countries. What if these certificates would require acquisition of goods or services from another country, from any specific country which are not member country, and how we deal in these cases? Thank you.
Maybe I will take up this question. I think it's important to separate the discussion between climate change associated versus environmental friendly, which was already embedded in any of our DMC countries standard and things related to certificate. So any basic requirements existing in the Philippine context and also reflected in the design guidelines and all the regulations in the Philippines, I do not believe it requires extra certificates, so to speak, associated to climate change per se. And in the engineering guidelines that all of us are already using, it already actually factors in climate adaptation, basic adaptation, which is different from the response to the climate change. Looking at the future projection for 50 years or 100 years scenario. I'm not sure if PM Jenny, you would have anything to add on it? No.
Any other questions?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Irish from the Department of Public Works and Highways. Ma'am, we're in the same department. I just want to ask or have your thoughts with regards to the Manila Bay project, which is the coastal defense. So I want to ask, how do you differentiate the Manila Bay project to the Laguna Lakeshore project? Because the Manila Bay has its coastal defense component, while the Laguna Lakeshore, is it just a road network, or there is also a component for coastal countermeasures or protection? Thank you.
I think what I can say is that the elevation of the Manila Bay is lower than the elevation of the Laguna Lake. So that's why on our evaluation and assessment on the climate adaptations, we provided 3.3 meter on the elevation lake level rise from the effect of the rise level at Manila Bay. So I think that's I can say about the difference of that Manila Bay to Laguna Lake. What I know only is that the elevation of the Manila Bay is lower than the elevation of the Laguna Lakes. That's why the water is always go to Manila Bay. Actually, that is one of our computations on the climate change adaptations. That is one of our bases.
Bolovinak, my name is John Lovinali from the Fiji Roads Authority. Firstly, I'd like to thank the panel for the wonderful discussion. My question is on to Shireen with regards to enabling works on projects, mega projects and middle-sized projects. You must understand that now in Fiji we are fully engaging with ADB on our bridge programs, as well as our TIS programs that have gone past, as well as the previous roads that we've constructed. We have one issue in Fiji which I think I concur with my colleague from Papua New Guinea, and that is informal settlements along road corridors that have been allocated for road corridors. Since most of the land, 90% of the land is owned by the Itoke or the indigenous people, so they tend to locate informal settlements along road corridors that were designed for future road widenings. My point is, one, what is your thinking behind the Fiji government going ahead and resettling all this, having a resettlement plan, and before the ADB social safeguards come in play, we do the relocation ourselves, get these people sorted out, and then have ADB come on board, which I concur with Mr. Dan's comment yesterday. It sort of expedites the enabling works for the projects, and we are project ready so that we look after these preliminary works, land acquisition, crop compensation, resettlement programs before the core of the project comes on board and before ADB comes on board. What is your thinking on that point? Thank you.
Thank you for a very interesting question. I would put it this way: there shouldn't be any preference on how we deal with that issue when it comes to sequencing before and after ADB is involved in that project. If ADB financing is envisioned, there will be safeguards due diligence and will help the government to prepare their plan, and that will basically ensuring following ADB principles. But at the same time, the implementation of the project is the government's own. So land acquisition process itself is also part of the implementation. So when ADB financing comes in and when ADB requirements kicks in, that's when ADB financing really comes in. So we can't really preclude any actions of the government if the project is already there and if the government is already working on it. It is just that when ADB financing is involved and when we start the due diligence for ADB board approval, there has to be gap-filling measures and corrective actions to be taken.
Okay, I think we'll take one more question from audience. I think one question also comes here on the online, so we'll just take two more questions. So, yes, please.
Thank you directly for allowing me to ask the question. My question is to Mr. Kung. In application of digitalization in road asset management, Cambodia is producing annual and 3-year rolling plan, maintenance plan. We are collecting all those data from the field, and then we're using FWD and HDM4 to run to all this. But we're still manually using it and when we collect the data. And the same thing that we are planning to do is to conduct road safety audit on our national highway. Is this a possibility now we can step up to another level that using AI to help us in collecting this data? Thank you.
I think I need to have a more context information to give a clear answer, but based on what you have shared, meaning you're collecting the data manually and analyzing that, I guess, manually as well at this point.
Like Secretary of Highway Department in PNG said that to be able to run HDM4 and then produce this annual and 3-year road maintenance plan, we have to collect the data using technology so far is to our engineer, see the bridge, see the payment distress, and then come up with solution. He's only the one who come up with, okay, a criteria, so I will do this to this pothole, I will do this to this crack, and that all of things, So is there now a possibility that AI can help us to do this? That will be faster and more consistent. That's what my question is.
Yeah, I think, definitely this is an area where AI can contribute, especially in terms of automating the data collection pipeline. Definitely by using the sensors, you can definitely collect the real-time data from the infrastructure that you want to maintain. And not only you can automatically collect the precise data from your infrastructure, but you can also use like predictive modeling to kind of forecast some of the high-risk sections, and also where you need to allocate budget going forward. Those kind of insights, something you can build based on the data you collected. But one caveat is that predictive modeling is only as good as the data behind them. So you need to have a very reliable and accurate data collection pipeline built before bringing in all this like data analytics and AI layer on top of that data. But definitely this is an area that AI has a tremendous potential to contribute.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are. I was warned that we're out of time. So, but if I know that there are other questions out there, so we'll be here after this to answer any other questions or provide any information. So please feel free to come up to us. So again, I'd like to thank all the two distinguished speakers here, Secretary Gibson and PM Zenny, and our panelists. So I thought this was really interesting presentation and discussion, and of course the questions were also quite thought-provoking, I should say. When I first joined ADB, I think 2008, I remember, I recall the life was more straightforward. I was just told to go process a airport project or a road project here in Nepal or Sri Lanka, and these topics were not in our minds at that time. Of course, in the background, but now things are much more complex. The workloads for our project team leaders, as well as the executing agencies in preparing projects, is now extremely complicated. Actually, I'm not sure if I can do it now, if I was asked. So, but I think, having said that, I think although it may be challenging and many factors to consider, the rewards, potential rewards, is extremely could be extremely gratifying in terms of the outcome. It's going to take a lot of effort. A lot of those factors are not complementary, actually. It also could be competing factors, and you have to balance them, optimize them. And these kind of technologies, digital technologies, also come into play in things, making things easier to do, more efficient. That's the major contributor. And of course, we have lending modality that can also kind of fuse all of this together and disperse our loan proceeds in a more efficient way. So I thought it was, although the topics seem different, but I think there's a kind of common threading line here that we could overcome challenges, think about things in a more innovative way, work around solutions, and come to a really optimal solution that we can all be proud of later. So with that, I'd like to thank the audience for your questions. Again, we'll make ourselves available here to answer any other questions you may have. Yeah. Thank you very much.